Going to quickly touch on another couple of ways you can make selections here in Photoshop. We're still going to work on this beach image. So we've looked at the rectangular marquee tool, the lasso tool, and the quick select tool. You'll find there are some other options for making selections under the select menu. One of the options you can get to down here before we go up there is this object selection tool, which is new in Photoshop. So what that will do is let you draw a box somewhat similar to the rectangular marquee tool. And so what I want to do is draw this box around an object I want to select. So I'm going to go for the girl again. So I want to make sure I start drawing outside of where a rectangle would kind of encompass her. So I'm going to start up here. And then I'm going to get pretty close down here. And then once again, Photoshop is going to do the hard work of figuring out where the edges are. And it's not done a bad job. It's struggling with the hair there. And again, it's struggling with the leg, which obviously we needed to patch up manually with the quick select tool. But this is another option you can start with that you might find a bit quicker. And that's pretty much what a lot of these tools are about with Photoshop, which is what is the quickest way to accomplish what you want to do. Now, having done this, what I want to show you is you don't just need to work with one selection tool. So now we've used the object selection tool. What I could do is switch back to the quick selection tool and patch up this area around her leg. So I could do exactly what we did in the previous video, paint that area in by her leg. You can see the same things happened again. Photoshop's accidentally tried to select the beach as well. I hold Alt down and I can paint back over and we're back to where we were. We've got that good selection around her body and her leg. And what I've done here is I've worked with two selection tools. So this is part of the skill you can develop of knowing what is the right tool to use for the job. Important thing to note in both cases here, certainly with the quick selection tool, because this is an additive selection tool, it's kind of automatically building the selection. It's increasing or decreasing if we hold Alt down what's in focus. What I could do is go to the lasso tool and add to this selection with that as well. If I click with the lasso tool and start drawing, so if I did a little oval like that, you can see we've lost the selection of the girl. So by default, the lasso tool isn't going to work in a kind of additive way where it takes that original selection we had around the girl and adds to it. So I'm going to undo that. And this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down Shift. So I've still got my lasso tool selected, but just look at the cursor here. If I hold down Shift, you can see a plus appears. So now with that, I can start drawing anywhere, inside or outside of the existing selection. Just create a little loop, let go, and you can see that's added to that existing selection with a further selection made with the lasso tool. Obviously, this isn't very useful. I'm going to undo that. Same applies if you wanted to use the lasso tool to remove part of a selection. If I hold the Alt key or Option key down, I can then start drawing and use that to cut away part of the selection. So you can see I've used that to cut a chunk away from her hair. So just understand this applies to all the selection tools here. You can switch between them and use them either additively or subtracting away. I could go to the rectangular marquee tool here, same again. Oh, hold Shift down, you can see that plus appears. I can draw my box and that's going to add that, albeit a very weird thing to do, to that existing selection. Back up the top here in the selection menu, there are 4 options I want to just bring your attention to that you can also play around with, which aren't in the toolbar strip over here. So first of which is select subject. So what this is going to try and do is figure out what's the most important thing in the scene. And in this case, it's figuring out that all the girls here are really the subject of the photo. So it's gone in and done all that hard work we would have been doing with the quick select tool, which is the best tool for the job here, and done pretty good jobs of creating selections around those. Again, what we'd probably want to do is get the quick selection tool again do that same thing of filling in the blanks. You can see part of the girl's leg over here. It hasn't quite selected. And so once again, I can start with an effect up here or a selection option up here, and then go to the toolbar to add or remove from the selection as I need to. So I'm going to deselect that. And then you can see there's a couple of other ones here. So select sky is pretty self-explanatory. This is one of the newer features in Photoshop where it's going to kind of do the opposite of trying to select the subject, and this will try and figure out where the sky is. If you wanted to replace the sky, put clouds in, that kind of thing, this is a good way to isolate that so that you don't end up painting over the girls in the front here and just affect the sky. The other one which is useful is focus area. So this is somewhat similar to subject, but this will work on where Photoshop can find the sharpest parts of an image. This is really, really useful on certain types of photography, but for the most part, select subject will pretty much do the same job. The last one I want to look at is color range. So this one is going to be a little bit harder to wrap your head around. What this will do is allow you to create a selection based on colors in the image. So what I might use this for is if I wanted to change the green of the hills up the back here. So if I go to select and color range, you'll see this little dialog window pops up. And what this does is enable this color picker cursor where I can go over the image and use this eyedropper, if you prefer, to select certain colors from the image. Now, as you click and sample parts of the image, what this is doing is it's updating the kind of preview it's put over the whole thing here with all the colors across the scene that have the same value. Because we've clicked on this green area where the hills are, it's sort of only showing those. If I clicked up here where the sky is, you can see it switches to start selecting where the sky is. Let me show you how you can create useful selections with this. First thing is, this is a little bit hard to work with because obviously we can't see which areas we want to make a selection of. So right down the bottom of this tool window here, you can see this selection preview. So at the moment it's saying white map. So what that means is everything that's white in your document is going to be cut out effectively. What you may prefer to do is use one of these other options like grayscale or quick mask is probably preferable. And so now it's added this kind of red filter around the areas that there's going to be a selection on. So with that on there, I can go back and click on our green hills here and you can see that show up. Now, what I want you to notice here is we're not getting a kind of pure, complete selection across the greens here. If you look down the bottom of the hill here, you can just see there's a bit of red poking through here. So how do we get all the green kind of selected? Same kind of concept again. Hold shift down. You can see this little plus gets added to the eyedropper or color picker tool. And now I can click and drag over the green areas. You've got to be pretty careful with this. And you can see what happens is as I start to drag around over all the color values in the hill here, it builds up this selection so it encompasses all of the green and doesn't leave any of those little red patches. If you were holding shift down and you accidentally dragged into the blue up here, you can see what's going to happen. It's now trying to select the blue of the sky as well as the greens. So I can press undo, Control Z, even though I'm within this sort of color range selection tool, and it's going to get me back to the greens. Got this little preview down here, which is sort of showing you which parts are going to be selected, the white and the black. And then you've also got this tool, fuzziness. What does that mean? Well, what's happening here is we're creating edges. We're creating edges where there's effect changeover between what we are selecting and what we're not selecting. So what fuzziness will do is make that sort of changeover or the edges of the selection a little bit blurry so that when we run an effect on this in a second, it doesn't look kind of ugly and has a sort of jagged edge. So I think this looks okay. So I'm going to click OK, and you can now see we've got a new selection based on the color of those green hills. So what I can now do is run an effect that will change the color of the grass in these hills. So I'm going to come up here to Image. I'm going to go to Adjustments, and I'm going to pick Hue Saturation, which, if you remember, we used all the way back at the start of the tutorials here. And now I can do a couple of things. I could say, oh, I want the green of the hills a bit brighter. Obviously, that looks terrible. Well, more saturated. Or I could just shift the hue a bit, so make them a bit more autumnal, or come the other way and make them a bit, unnatural green. Or I could play with the lightness. Say if I wanted to darken them off, make them less intense. Maybe I'll take the saturation down as I'm doing that. I can click OK. We can deselect up here, or Control D, and you can see what that's done. So by using that color range selection effect, this is a way you can work with getting specific colors across your whole document and changing them all at once. Head to ToyShooter.com for more tutorials, resources, and help with Photoshop compositing. You can also subscribe to my free newsletter by visiting shoot.toys in your browser or clicking on the link on screen. You can also follow my work on Instagram at instagram.com/shoot.toys. Subscribe to the channel to watch a special subscriber-only video, which you'll find on my channel page after subscribing. Lastly, you'll find links to all the places I've just mentioned in the description for this video below.